You are listening to One Happy Podcast, episode 93.
Not only was the food good, but the experience was truly Aruban.
Bon dia and welcome to One Happy Podcast, the officially unofficial podcast of the island of Aruba. As always, I'm your host, Curtis Robinson, aka Aruba Kurt, and I've got an incredible show planned for you today as I'm being joined once again by Regina Crusan, who was a guest back on episode 76 of the show, where she told us all about her Aruba story, how she discovered the island, and what keeps her coming back. And we had so much fun on that episode that I asked Regina to come back again, and today we're going to talk about her upcoming trip and also about restaurants. So if you're someone that enjoys finding out about the Aruba culinary scene, then this episode is definitely for you, because Regina and I go over some of our favorite restaurants on the island. So why don't we just jump right into episode 93 of One Happy Podcast, talking Aruba restaurants with my fellow Pittsburgher, Regina Crusan. Hey, Regina, how are you?
Hey, Kurt, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm excited to talk to you again because you are one of my favorite people. We are both from Pittsburgh, so we have that bond going.
Yes, plus we're both really big Steeler fans, so
That's right.
That's another thing. Plus our love of Aruba.
That's right. Yeah, especially our love of Aruba. It's a very special place. I just came back from a trip a few weeks ago, and you'll be going down to Aruba in a few weeks, right?
Yes, I actually am leaving on Labor Day.
Nice. Very cool. Very cool. And how long will you be down there for?
I'll be down there for 9 days. I'm
Nice.
coming back on the 13th.
That's cool. And you were last down there in what, January?
Yes, I was down there January 9th through the 16th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And you stayed at the Renaissance for that trip, right?
I did. I stayed at the Renaissance on the adult side.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I did. I've stayed there several times. I've never stayed at the, I think it's called the Ocean Suites.
Uh-huh.
I've never stayed on that side, but I love well, as we talked about before, I love that infinity pool that they have there, and it's just like a beautiful view of the downtown, and
Mm-hmm.
to see the ocean right from, because that's on the second level there, and just a beautiful viewpoint.
Are you staying at the Renaissance again?
I'm not. I'm actually going back down to Palm Beach this time, and I'm going to be
Okay.
staying at the Holiday Inn.
Okay, nice. Nice. I love how you bounce around from place to place. That's pretty cool. Most people get attached to just like one spot and that becomes their vacation spot, but you experience like a lot of everything.
Well, I've done a few. I guess it was I've stayed at the Occidental, and when staying there, did the all-inclusive. It's the Barcelo now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've done the Renaissance, but like that's more in the downtown area, and now I'm going back to Palm Beach. But again, not doing all-inclusive this time. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll be feeling it out a little bit. I think it'll
Right.
be interesting. It'll be fun again. It's always fun.
So where do you sit on the whole all-inclusive versus non-all-inclusive thing?
I think it has a time and a place. I really think that, if you're a big drinker, then I think sometimes all-inclusive is something that you really want to look at and maybe take a look at, because I think then it could be cost-effective for you.
Right.
Also, I think if you have a bigger group sometimes, it's so much easier to coordinate, and, like you don't have to like get taxis or Jeeps if you want to go somewhere, and, you don't necessarily have to have a rental car.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just like wanting to relax, kind of like just soak up the beach and, like soak up maybe that Palm Beach area where the majority of the all-inclusives are located in that
Right.
vicinity, then I think it's a nice thing. Having stayed there, I did enjoy it. I stayed with a group. There was 7 of us, 5 of which had gone to high school together, and that was several years ago. And so that was good. It was nice. And we did go off property several times. And I do think it's sometimes it's a little bit a different environment because you have a lot of people that are there at the same time, like every year.
Uh-huh.
And you can kind of make some friends there with people because a lot of times they're not like running off to go do something everywhere, or they have a little bit more focus, or you see people at dinner, you can go to dinner with them. So sometimes it's maybe a little bit of a better opportunity to meet some folks there sometimes. I do like, the ability to go to a lot of different restaurants because Aruba has some amazing restaurants.
Right.
I think there's a time and a place. And I think there are occasions or reasons why you want to do all-inclusive. Yeah, I see it a lot of times on the post, and, people are like, well, what about all-inclusive? What do you think? And I think a lot of people tend to bash it because of Aruba's great restaurants and things like that. But I do think, there are reasons why people would choose it.
Oh, definitely. And the thing is, you don't have to stay on property the whole time. You can still branch out. I mean, it takes away from the cost effectiveness a little bit. But, I mean, if you just want to experience the great restaurants Aruba has, there's nothing that says you have to stay on the property the entire time.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely correct. I would agree. Because I would always have gone off once or twice.
Right.
When staying at all-inclusive.
Now, I've never done an Aruba all-inclusive. So the restaurants at the Aruba all-inclusives, are they only for the use of the resort guests, or can outsiders also come to those restaurants?
At the Occidental, they were only for the guests of the Occidental.
Okay.
Now, if you did all-inclusive at the Renaissance, those restaurants were open to anybody.
Right, okay. Yeah, because every once in a while, someone will throw out the name of a restaurant, and I'm like, I have never heard of that restaurant before, and it's because it's attached to the resort, and it's not for outsiders.
Well, I think the Marriott does that too. Like, you have all inclusive, but their restaurants are open to a lot of them do. I don't think that like the TAM or the Divi or I guess what's the Barcelo now. I don't think any of them have outside guests. I think it's just for their guests on property.
The quality of food at those restaurants, is it comparable to what you'd find off property?
Some of it is. I think sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. I mean, there are the I remember the Italian restaurant at the Occidental was great. It was fabulous. I mean, like, they had like this huge spread. They had like all the antipasta, like the salad bar kind of thing, and then the food itself was excellent. Some of it, not so much. The Mexican was okay. It was all right. And then they had, kind of where you didn't need to make a reservation. You would go in. It would just be like a buffet kind of style. And they would have themes to the buffets each night. So, it was good. Like, you could pick what you wanted to eat. I always thought that breakfasts were great. Breakfasts at the all-inclusives tend to be really good. I mean, they're like, they have plenty of everything. Like, no matter what you like, you could find something. If you like pancakes, or if you like omelets, which they cook for you right there, made to order omelets. And then they have all like your breakfast meats. But then they have like the European style of breakfast as well, where they have, a lot of the pastries and the cheese and lunch meat, which we call in the United States. They would have, those. But I mean, like, there's everything. And then all the fruit and juice and coffee and things like that. So I always thought the breakfasts were always really good. That was always like my best. I always joked around with my friend, my best friend, my favorite meal on vacation is breakfast, and it's pig and fruit. Sausage and bacon and fruit.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. That sounds good to me. The last all-inclusive I was at was this place in Punta Cana. Food was absolutely terrible there, but the breakfast was amazing. So I would eat enough at breakfast so that I could like kind of coast through the day a little bit.
Yeah, and I went to, like, when you're speaking of that, I did go to in Riviera Maya in Mexico as well. And the food, I didn't think the food was as good as in Aruba.
Well, Aruba's total culinary scene is just so great that you kind of have to have a certain level of quality in order to compete.
I would think so.
And speaking of restaurants, that's actually one of the main reasons why I wanted to have you back on the show, because you're definitely a foodie, and I wanted to get some more tips from you.
Well, yeah, I just, they have such great food there, and it's
Mm-hmm.
great to explore. And I think I'll be doing a little bit more exploring because I had done a little bit more in the downtown area the
Right.
last few times because I've stayed. But I want to see some of like maybe the newer places in Palm Beach. Not that
Mm-hmm.
I won't go to my favorites.
Right,
Trust me.
definitely. Well, see,
Trust
you
me.
convinced me to try the downtown more this past trip. So I
Yeah,
have you to
there's
thank for that.
some really great places down there. So yeah, don't don't skip the downtown area.
Definitely not. A lot of people don't even experience those restaurants down there, but I'm kind of leaning towards liking the downtown area a little bit better than the Palm Beach area right about now.
Ah, well, I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
still do some of the favorites. Like I have to go to Yamanja. Love, love, love that place.
Right, and we
Um,
went there for the first time this trip, and it
yeah,
was absolutely incredible.
I mean it's like actually it's like 2 minute walk from the Renaissance.
Mm-hmm.
So if,
That's where
if
we
any
parked.
of yeah, I mean if any of your listeners have know where the Renaissance is or where the taxi stand is right there at the Renaissance where the fountain is. I mean, it's literally 2 minutes from there. You just go
Mm-hmm.
right down that little alley there, and there it is on the right-hand side. So close.
Yeah, no, there were a party of three. We tried three completely different things. One person ordered fish. I ordered beef, and Maggie ordered stuffed zucchini, and they were all just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I've gotten the skewers, and it's on this, like, hot plate,
Mm-hmm.
and it has, like, mushrooms, and it has bacon, and it has blue cheese, and it has the cubes of, like, filet, and then it
Mm-hmm.
had a shrimp skewer on the side. I mean, it's just amazing. That's what I've usually have gotten there.
Nice,
And they
nice.
had
A
some
little bit of
really
everything.
interesting desserts too.
Yes, I hardly ever order dessert, but I was reading their dessert menu, and it was so enticing that I had to order dessert, which was kind of difficult because I was already stuffed. But I don't know what it was called, but it was like these cookies and ice cream and fruit, and it was absolutely fantastic.
Oh, it's some of their appetizers. I think they have like a goat cheese pastry, and it's like
Hmm.
oh, like amazing.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I fell in love with goat cheese on Aruba.
Ooh, you got to try that the next time you go.
Hmm. Definitely. So if you were to name like say your top five restaurants, what would they be?
Well, Yamanjo, that we just talked about. I
Hmm.
would say El Gaucho. That's a favorite of mine. We've gotten, I mean, there have been lesser than stellar times that I've been there,
Hmm.
honestly. But I think every place has maybe an off day or
Right,
something.
definitely.
And but it's a favorite. I I love their steak. I usually get the El Gaucho there,
Hmm.
and
And what is the El Gaucho?
it's Argentinian beef. It's a cut of Argentinian beef.
Hmm.
I don't know if it doesn't say like specifically what they just call it the El Gaucho and that it's
Okay.
Argentinian beef. I mean, it's a big slab of steak, and it's
Okay. Okay.
excellent. Because I'm usually a ribeye girl, but like that is actually really good there. I just find like I can't eat a lot there. And one thing I do like there is their wedge salad because I always love wedge salads, and they have a really nice one there.
Uh huh.
Um, and then I usually get that, and then you always get three sides with it as well, and they're good. But I barely touch them because
Right.
usually I'll have the wedge salad, and then I'm
Hmm.
like eat the steak because I want to eat the steak, and so the
Hmm.
sides kind of sit, and I don't usually end up being able to eat them or really,
Right.
partaking of them so
Uh huh.
much.
Now I love salads, but at a steakhouse I avoid salad because they take up valuable space inside my belly.
I guess that it helps with digestion, Kurt. I gotta try at least something.
Screw that. I just put as much beef in there and it can just sit there for however long.
Okay. I see.
I'm a steak lover.
No. Well, anyway, for anybody else that may be listening, the wedge salad is very good.
Nice.
Obviously, Kurt's not interested, but other people maybe.
Well, I'll tell you how much I used to love beef. As far as I was concerned, chicken was like a vegetable. I used to be that bad. But as I get older, I've toned it down a lot. I don't eat beef that often anymore, but whenever I do, I like to really go hard.
Well, I would probably tend to agree with you there, but I'm not a much of a fish eater. I eat seafood, like shrimp and crab meat
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
lobster and scallops and things. I eat that. I'm not like oysters and mussels, not
Yeah, that's
that,
not really
and
my
not
thing.
really fish, but seafood I like, and I do
Mm-hmm.
like steak. I like chicken. But honestly, if I'm going out to a restaurant, my typical choices there are going to be either some type of seafood or
Mm-hmm.
some type of steak. I'm not a
Okay.
big like when I go out like at home, I eat a lot of chicken at home, but
Right.
on at a restaurant, I almost like I want that steak or I want the other, like or a something else. Like if I'm in an Italian restaurant, obviously something different, like maybe
Mm-hmm.
like veal something like that. But yeah, I just
Yeah.
don't necessarily order a lot of chicken.
Right.
So
Right. No, I'm the same way. That's if I can't find anything on the menu. First of all, why am I there? But then I'll go to my then I'll go to chicken if I go to a place where I just can't find anything that I want.
well, true, it is a standby. I mean, how people can't necessarily ruin chicken too much. It's not.
Right. You hope not.
Well, that's true. Yeah, you never know, but
You can ruin anything.
that is that. Yeah, yeah. You think it wouldn't be the case, but it definitely is.
But that never happens to me on Aruba. I've only had one what I would say is a bad meal there. I won't say the place, but I've only had one meal that I would say, okay, this was just bad.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't think I have.
Yeah, so I mean that's pretty good. I mean, like we said, there's so many great restaurants that the competition is so fierce that you can't really drop below a certain bar or you just won't survive.
Well, that's true, and then word of mouth, especially with Facebook and with a lot of like the Aruba groups and things like that. If it's
Right.
and I mean like every place can have a bad day, or
Right,
like
definitely.
it's just not your taste,
Mhm.
or But if you get a lot of it starts piling up, or like your staff isn't friendly, which
Right.
I forget what place it was. It was some place I was on, one of your somewhere, and I was reading about it, and I was like, wow. And they said everybody was just so rude, and I'm like,
Mhm.
isn't that interesting? Because that's like just not the perception that I've gotten coming from Aruba in
Mhm.
general.
Right.
And
No, yeah, I agree.
I always think about, one of the reasons probably why that I like Aruba is that to me it reminds me a lot of like a Pittsburgh kind of environment. And I
Mhm.
don't know if that makes sense to you, but it just like, we're supposed to be like the friendly city or the small,
Mhm.
small town city, and it just seems to me that that's the same kind of environment.
Right.
And it is interesting because how many people that live in Aruba and work in Aruba and our staff and things like that are not from Aruba. They're from
Mhm.
like Venezuela or Jamaica or
Colombia.
Colombia,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of the different countries, and that's that's where people are from.
Yeah. But they come to Aruba and they start drinking the water. I think that's what it is. Something in the water that just transform you into this just really nice, down to earth, just comforting type of person. Because that's what I feel from Aruba.
Really nice, nice people that live there that, like I said, aren't necessarily Aruban, but
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, it's the vibe that just envelops the whole island. That's how I feel like Aruba has embraced me. I mean, I feel completely comfortable there, and that's hard for me. I don't feel. I mean, I feel comfortable here in the U.S., obviously, but whenever I go to other places, I don't get that same feeling. But whenever I go to Aruba, it's like I'm coming home.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. I went to Curacao, I visited Curacao, and
Hmm.
it's very different, quite different. Though, it's one of the ABC's islands and they
Hmm.
speak Papiamento, and it's a different Papiamento that's spoken in Aruba, which I just recently found out.
Okay.
Um, they speak, I mean, that's Papiamento is spoken in the ABC Islands,
Right.
but just like I guess a different dialect in
Hmm.
Bonaire and Curacao, they have a different dialect than the Papiamento that is spoken in Aruba. I
Right.
thought that was an interesting thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like growing up in Pittsburgh. You speak one way, and then you meet someone from West Virginia, and it's completely it's still English, but it's completely different.
Oh yeah, or Boston. Like they say about the accents. I think wasn't it recently that Pittsburgh and Boston and somewhere else was up for the worst accent, and Pittsburgh
Oh
won.
yeah. Oh really? Really? See, I can't even hear Pittsburgh accents. Well, I don't have one.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, neither one of us do,
It's crazy. Imagine that.
except when
But
someone else listens to us. But
right. But you mentioned that you like seafood, so like lobster and things like that. Where's your go-to for seafood?
well, several. I would say probably Driftwood, and that's actually
Okay.
That's in the downtown area as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Really great restaurant. And then there's the old Fisherman's. I can't remember the last part of it. That
Okay.
actually is kind of more of a local place.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the downtown, but it's also very good.
Mm-hmm.
I remember got like a lobster salad there for lunch one day, and it was amazing. I was
That
like,
sounds good.
wow, for lunch, and it was like inexpensive, and it was just really, really good. Um, but that's really good. But Driftwood, I would say Driftwood in terms of like seafood. Now, one
Uh-huh.
place that I would say I did like the seafood. I had gotten a shrimp casserole.
Okay.
Was But the environment there was spectacular. Was the flying fish bone.
Okay.
Went at night. I mean, I can't imagine like if you can imagine like you say you had dinner at the beach.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you go to Flying Fish Bone, and you don't have to, but I mean, I just thought this was amazing. Your feet are right in the water,
Mm-hmm.
sitting in the water, like
Right.
and I wasn't getting wet,
Mm-hmm.
but my legs were, but I mean, like my dress and stuff like that weren't. And they have a
Right.
little stand to hold your shoes, and I was just like, it was just so amazing to sit like at the edge of the water, or, with your feet in the water and have dinner. Now, I didn't
That is
go
pretty cool.
for sunset or anything. I know a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, I'm not getting there that early. That's a little bit too early for me
Mm-hmm.
for
Yeah. No,
dinner.
I'm a late eater. We do try and have one sunset dinner, but it's like it's effort because we don't like to leave the beach early. So in order to do that, we have to cut our beach days short and go back and get showered and dressed, and it's kind of a hassle.
And it does tend to, like, when I've been there, sunset is like the sun's going down at like 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, wow, I'm not ready to eat,
Right.
And then like if you did, you have to cut it off really pretty short, like at
Mm-hmm.
4 to be somewhere to make sure that you're there on time. So anyway,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, not
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, the entire time I'm like, well, this is really nice, but I could have watched it from the beach.
yeah, exactly. So no, I haven't done that, like at a restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
that. But I did love the environment, and they had like these blue lights in the water. It just made
Mm-hmm.
it was just so nice, and it was like welcoming and relaxing. And but I did like that shrimp casserole was the bomb. It was excellent.
Nice.
And I know that's like nobody says it anymore. I did, so sorry.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
And then another place that's downtown is LG Smith Steakhouse, and that's
Yes.
kind of attached with. It's like right near the casino, the Renaissance Casino, and it's excellent. Really good food.
Mm-hmm. It's
Nice
funny.
and
We went to that place and I enjoyed it while I was there. But then on the next trip we didn't go back. And I start towards the end of the trip I started to realize how much I missed it. So I guess it was actually really good. It just didn't strike me just how good it was when we were there. But now it's like on my list of places that I have to go to.
Yeah, really good.
Mm-hmm.
How about you? We haven't talked about your top five restaurants.
Well, I mean, Yemenja has definitely taken a spot in my top five. Really glad that I went there. It was incredible. I think Quinta del Carmen is still my number one. Although we didn't visit it this time because we tried to make room for other restaurants. But I
hmm
really enjoyed Quinta. It's a old. It used to be a hospital, but now it's been refurbished into a upscale dining place. The courtyard is absolutely beautiful. So I got a lot of history. It's really really nice place. Great drinks. great drinks there. That's always important for me. But the wait staff is incredible. We always get the same waiter, Wilmer, and it wasn't by design. The first time, I mean, obviously the first time we got him, we were brand new to the restaurant. But the second time we got him, didn't plan on it or anything, but he remembered us, and this was like a year between visits. He remembered like what we ate and things like that. So I was like, hey, you know what? That's pretty cool. And from that point on, we've always asked for him. So
Nice.
he has a
Yeah,
special place for us.
it's always fun to like reconnect with people.
Mm-hmm. So that would probably be my number one place. Yemenja's up there. We don't always do fine dining. Sometimes we like a lot more casual places. And Legends Pub is one of our favorites now.
Mm.
It's right across from where we stay, so there's that convenience factor. But also their food's really good. And if you want to bring down the average cost of your meals, it's a good place to go into because you can still get the same quality that you get in some of the fine dining places, but at a more reasonable, price tag.
Cool. I haven't been there, so I'll have to definitely.
Yeah, it's pretty new. It's not even a year old.
Cool.
I'm trying to think where else. Oh, Alfie's. We're big Alfie's fans now. That's in the downtown area.
The Canadians own that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And everything that I've had there was incredible. Now, the first time we went there, we had the poutine and a burger, and that was really good. This last time, I had the pulled pork, and it was honestly one of the best pulled porks I've ever had, which surprised me. I don't really. I mean, I don't have a lot of experience with Canadians, but I just don't really think of Canadians with barbecuing. But hey, whatever they did to this pulled pork, it stood up to anything we make here in the States.
Oh, very good. Wow. That's interesting. That is kind of interesting. You're right. I would never think that wouldn't occur.
Yeah. Right.
Hey, those Canadians make some great barbecue.
Right. I've never heard that.
No, me either.
I'm trying to think what else. I mean, I do like fish. I don't have it that often in Aruba, but at Barefoot this time, I had a survey. I put out a survey for people to pick a new restaurant for me, and the final two were Barefoot and Driftwood, and Barefoot ended up beating it out by I think 2 votes.
Okay.
So we went to Barefoot this time, but that was my first time there. We went there right around sunset. We chose a time that would get us there as the sun was setting, and the sun was set to go down at 6:30 for that trip. So we got there about 6:15, which was as late as we could push it.
Yeah.
And we didn't do the toes in the sand thing just because I want my shoes on while I'm eating for whatever reason. So we sat up on the deck, but the view was just as good as if we were down on the beach. And the food was absolutely spectacular. I had this like seafood puff pastry thing that was it had me wanting to lick my plate, to be honest. And I also got grouper there. It was like a spinach and grouper thing, but it was great. Yeah, everything there was really good. It sucks because we only go for 7, maybe 8 days, 9 days if we push it. So it's hard for us to. You have to decide if you're going to repeat places that you can't explore new places. But I like to explore for my own satisfaction, but also for the podcast.
Yeah, I get
But
that.
going there for such a short period of time, it's like we can only ever fit in maybe like 1 or 2 new places each time. How do you handle that?
Well, I mean, being in the downtown, that was kind of like, where can I walk? A lot of it. I do have a friend that's a taxi driver now though. But
Okay.
one of the things that I always ask people, and that's how I ended up going to El Gaucho the first time around, and was ask the people that live there, and that's how I got to Driftwood, and where do you go? What's your favorite place to go?
Right.
How we found the old fisherman's was ask the valet at the at the taxi stand down there, like, where do you go? And it's like, oh, go down here. So I think a lot of times it's something like that, or I'll ask my friend who's a taxi driver now, like, hey Jerry, what's good? Where should I go? I'll do that. A lot of times to try to see like because being a taxi driver, he's taking people everywhere, so he's going to get the word of mouth. He's going to hear what to do. I know he said him and his girlfriend when they celebrate, they actually go to a Flying Fish Bone. He's like, that's where, they go. So I don't know. I think that might have been how we got with Flying Fish Bone,
Right.
having gone there. But, yeah, so I think a lot of times we'll try that. But then there's sometimes I'm just like, I know there are certain places that I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I'm going with some new people, a lot of times
Mm-hmm.
I do want them to experience some of the really great places that I've been. So that's the repeat.
Right.
Like, you don't want to
Mm-hmm.
try something and you find out, like, well, not only did I not really care for it, but they didn't either.
Right.
And you know how, like, when you're kind of like, maybe you're not considered the host, obviously, but if it's like their first time there and you're going somewhere new and then it doesn't turn out well, you always
Mm-hmm.
I always feel like I'm responsible for them not having maybe a great time. So
Exactly.
sometimes it's kind of, but I think that's how I've kind of discovered new places.
Uh-huh. That was always my staple when we'd go to any place. I would ask, the bellman, hey, where do you like to eat? Because, they're going to know the ins and outs of everything.
Yes.
See, the thing is, Aruba is so well known to us, maybe not the outsiders that aren't fanatical the way that we are. But it's like we pretty much know the ins and outs of so many places. There's new places cropping up all the time, and some of them are really off the radar, and I do try and branch out to those occasionally. But I think that I'm gonna eventually do a trip where I just do all off the grid places. Yeah,
That would be
risky.
a fun thing to do. Yeah, it kind of would. And I think you have to get hopefully Maggie's up for that too, because sometimes like the off the grid places, you're kind of like you're taking a chance,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, okay, well, our backup plan is, and I know you do taco truck and different like food truck stuff, so you need to have your backup plan in place in
Yes.
case like that's just a terrible thing.
Yep. The taco truck is our backup plan. If we eat too early well, we always enjoy our food usually, but if we eat too early or if we're in a situation where we didn't enjoy a meal, then we would end up at the taco truck.
Yeah, but you guys also do the one thing that I was like cracked me up. Where do you go when you're in Aruba? Where is your standby?
Where's my
Besides
standby?
the taco truck. Yeah, besides the taco truck, which cracked me up.
My standby. What is my standby? I don't know. I don't know.
Wendy's.
Yes. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And we landed and we were driving and we said we're not going to Wendy's. We're not going to Wendy's at all this trip. And I think less than 3 hours later we're at freaking Wendy's.
It just cracked me up because I'm like, you the foodie and all these different places, and you're like, I'm going to try all these places. I have X number of things on my list, and then you're like, yep, we were at Wendy's.
Like 5 times.
It kind of cracked me up.
Yeah, no, it's completely ridiculous. The funny thing is, I don't eat Wendy's when I'm here. Like, whenever I lived in Pittsburgh, but I mean, I lived in Pittsburgh like 20 years ago, was the last time I lived there. And, I would eat Wendy's back then. I was a lot younger and everything. But since I've moved here, so it's been almost 20 years, I've probably eaten at Wendy's maybe 3 or 4 times here. But I will hit Wendy's in Palm Beach 3 or 4 times in that week or 8 days. It's ridiculous.
That is funny. That's one thing that I really try not to do, not to do is to go to a chain. Because I know, I always think, where was someone going? To like more, or like Ruth Chris. And I'm like, oh no, go to one of the local restaurants. They have really great steak restaurants here. I'll give you 5 restaurants. I'm like, don't go to a chain restaurant. I always, even when I travel in the United States, I always try to. And again, sometimes you're traveling by yourself. You just want something like really a quick standby. If you're traveling for work or something, that is going to be good. But a lot of times if you're going out to dinner with a group, I was like, hey, what's a great local place? And, just try to like soak up that flavor of that area, because, how many times do you have that opportunity to be somewhere and, like you can go to Wendy's any day, honestly.
Right.
And I don't really do a lot of, like you said, I don't do a lot of like Wendy's or, I don't do a lot of that, like fast food at home. And if I'm going to go to like a restaurant, even here at home. But I do frequent chains. We all do. But, if you're away, like that's the time to go somewhere that's not a chain,
Definitely.
I think.
Definitely. But see, one of my problems with Aruba is things shut down pretty early. Like, I'm a
Well,
night owl. And I'm always hungry, so that's a horrible combination for a place where it's hard to find a place to eat after 10 o'clock or so. Because
yeah, that is true.
on
You know,
vacation, I always want something to eat at midnight for some reason.
well, that's where an all-inclusive is pretty good because they usually have food available somewhere. Like you
True.
get late food somewhere. That's a good all-inclusive benefit.
And that's why we like the various food trucks around the island as well, because a lot of them don't open until 8 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock
Yeah.
at night. Some of them.
Yeah, and I think that's I think Palm Beach is a little bit, they're open later. Like if you're going to the downtown or other areas, you're gonna run across that. The downtown for the most part, other than restaurants and the casinos, I mean it's closing down at like 6 is the latest. 5 to 6
Oh wow.
o'clock. All the boutiques and the stores, they close between like 5 and 6 o'clock.
Yeah, it does turn into a ghost town.
Yeah, I remember when I had gone, when I told you I originally went to Aruba 14 years ago. That was the first trip that I had gone. And, Palm Beach was nothing. I mean, like there was nothing like it is now. It was very, there were a few hotels, not the restaurants were nothing like they are now. And to go downtown, you really had to go early. I remember going, and we got there probably about 4 o'clock because we took the bus and we went down. We're like being adventurous. We're going to take the bus. And we went down and everything was closing. Like we had maybe a half an hour to an hour of shopping, and that was it. And it was like everything was closed. Right. So, and because you didn't necessarily realize that that's how it worked. And it's still kind of that way. But I know, like the one I went into the one jewelry store, and the guy that owned the one jewelry store in the downtown, he also owned a jewelry store in Palm Beach, and it's open until like 10. So the time is a lot different from the downtown or other than the Palm Beach, like where the mall is, and a lot of those restaurants down there, they stay open a little bit later. They're open a little bit later.
Well, if you run a store in Palm Beach and you close at 6, you wouldn't get any business because everyone's at the beach until 4, 5, 6 o'clock.
Yeah, but you think that would be that way? Like you think they don't? That's one time that they're not less necessarily, I guess, in the downtown. They really, I think that's where they cater more towards the cruise ships.
Cruise ship. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, my first visit to Aruba was aboard a cruise ship, and we didn't leave until 1 a.m. So downtown would be hopping a lot later, whenever those sorts of ships were in port.
Was there? Having stayed down there like that, like all the whole mall shut down. It shut down pretty early. So yeah, pretty crazy, huh?
Yeah. Just in closing, I just wanted to ask you. Okay, so say you were bringing your best friend to Aruba who had never been to Aruba. Where would you take them to eat? Where would be your go-to for them? And you can only pick one place.
I would take them to the Flying Fishbone.
Flying Fishbone?
I would. And the environment, being like in the sand, your feet in the sand, that's like, that's outside of anything that you wouldn't experience anywhere else. And I don't believe, I've not heard of that other places, I've not heard someone say, oh yeah, like I sat in the sand in Mexico, or I did this, on the beach, yes. But your feet in the sand, your feet in the water?
In the water.
No, I've not seen that. So it was just, to me, that was like, not only was the food good, but the experience was truly Aruban. Maybe let me say it that way. So that's why I would pick Flying Fishbone.
Sounds good to me. Maybe I'll try Flying Fishbone my next trip down to Aruba.
And you'll have to be sure to take your shoes off.
I guess so. Well, you clued me in on your Menja, so you haven't steered me wrong yet.
Yeah, I tried, Kurt.
And I thank you for that.
So I'm gonna have to check out Quinta del Carmen the next time I go.
Please do. Please do, and let me know how you like it.
I will do that.
Well, I want to thank you again for joining me on One Happy Podcast. As always, it was a pleasure.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's like catching up with an old friend. I really
That's
appreciate
right.
it.
And one of these days, we have to catch up on the island.
Yeah, for real. We have to catch up in person. I
Yes,
feel like
definitely.
I've known you for forever, and
Right.
I've not met you in person yet.
Right. Happens so often with this podcast thing.
Yeah,
Gotta
that's
change that. Okay.
all right. Bye.
So there you have it for another awesome episode of One Happy Podcast, the officially unofficial podcast of the island of Aruba. Once again, I want to thank you guys for choosing to download and listen to today's episode. You could be doing anything right now, but you chose to spend the last 40 minutes hanging out with me and Regina, who I also want to thank for being such an awesome guest again. Now, we talked about a lot, but if you missed something, don't worry about it because, as always, I took the notes so that you don't have to. And they can be found at onehappypodcast.com/EP93. OneHappyPodcast.com is the flagship for all things podcast related, so please do head on over there to check it out. Not only will you find the show notes for this and every other episode of the show, but you'll also find archives of past episodes, the resource page, and blog posts that are just loaded with Aruba information. Things are most definitely picking up, so I do want to thank you guys and also guests like Regina, because without you all, none of this would be possible.
Do you want me to say it?
Say what? Say what?
Cue the music, Kurt.